Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examinations. Today we have picked up some of the important articles from the Hindu which are very significant from your GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS 3 perspective. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says the expansion of settlements into the flood-prone areas. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. This article is important from your GS paper 3, which is from the disaster management perspective. The article goes on to speak about floods and the flood management techniques. When we speak about floods, what exactly are floods? We have a natural area or we have a bank that is present in a particular area. If water overflows or if it is not within a natural ecosystem or within that particular premise, and if it starts inundating and it spreads outside this natural area, that is what is going to lead to the floods. So flood means an excessive water that we see present in without any end to it, which is excessively flowing in that area, is what is called as floods. So what exactly happens whenever you have a flood? You will also have a floodplain as well. You will also have regions in and around that particular region as well. When a person occupies that region, that is what is called as flood prone area. So what is happening? There is an area, let's say for example this is a river. The river has a natural flow of it. What if there is an area, let's say about 500 meters or let's say for about 200 meters or let's say even 100 meters in and around it? This will be the floodplain. So this floodplain, when occupied by the people, when settlements are present in and around this particular river or the lake, that is what is leading to settlement in the flood prone areas. Ideally, if there is excessive water that is flowing out of the river, this floodplain or the region in and around it would be able to safeguard the people. But because there is excessive water, now this water is now entering the settlements. Why is it entering the settlements? That is because this has been illegally occupied by the people. So India's urban areas have been flooding more often, destroying lives and livelihood. Yet according to a study led by World Bank published in Nature, it says flood risk in many cities is rising because they are expanding into the flood prone areas. Ideally, since these areas were supposed to be the floodplains which should have been reserved for excessive flooding because they would have withstood the floods, but now they have been occupied by the people and they have been occupied, and as a result flood waters have been entering these regions, and as a result people have been suffering as well. So according to the paper, since 1985 human settlements in the flood prone areas have doubled. Experts say findings spotlight the risk of unsustainable urbanization in India. The study also found that middle income countries like India have more urban settlements in the flood prone zones than low and high income countries. Now the question is, why is there a flood or there is settlements into the flood prone areas? We have a couple of reasons for the same. What are the reasons? When you look into the population pressure, we as a country, we have a population of more than 1.4 billion. These people require a place. These people require a livelihood as well. So what do? They start entering into those areas, increase the urbanization, increase the concrete jungle, and there are more urban lifestyles as well. So in order for the people to have a sustainable livelihood for their own, they start moving from the rural areas to the urban areas. As they move from the rural to the urban areas already have a lot of density. There is thick population in the urban areas. So those areas which are previously unoccupied, which are previously left unattended, now they are being occupied by the people. So increase of the population is the major reason. For example, there have been lakes. These lakes are now becoming concrete jungles as well. Let's say for example, there are a couple of places in Chennai which were once the regions which are completely with lakes. They were completely with ponds as well. Now there are these lakes and ponds which have given rise to the real estate mafia, and the real estate mafia has completely destroyed these lakes and buildings have come. And then we speak about floods entering our houses, water entering our houses. Why? Because these were earlier the flow of the river, these were earlier the flow of the lakes. They were all coming up and then reaching that particular region. They were reaching that particular lake, that pond as well, and now now it has been taken over by the real estate mafia, leading to what is called as flood crisis in major cities. Take it Delhi, take it Mumbai, take it Hyderabad, take it Chennai, take it Bengaluru. All these places, because of excessive urbanization, because of taking over the lands of these lakes, has created this particular problem. So when we speak about floods, there are two types. One is according to the duration, where we have slow onsetting flood, rapid onsetting flood, and then we have flash flooding. And according to the location, it can be grouped as coastal flooding, so those flooding which happens along the oceanic water, arrows flooding, river flooding, as well as the urban flooding. So this is embracing and speaking about the urban flooding in the present situation. So the article says that because of the excessive concentration of the people, because of the population explosion, people have been moving from the rural to the urban areas. That is the primary reason for settlements in the flood prone areas. Ideally, these should have been plains. These regions should have been not been concentrated by the people. But since we do not have enough land, people are taking it over illegally. Then there is slum development. People come and randomly start living in that particular area, and over a period of time, since the government does not take care of such areas, it happens to become the habitat of such people living in the flood prone areas, as well as these areas have become the part of the real estate mafia. The second reason as to why there is increasing cases of flooding is also because of the deforestation. When we speak about plants would be able to restrict the flow of the water, and they would also be able to withstand a certain pressure. They also prevent the landslides as well. Let's say, for example, in the Western Ghats, especially in the state of Kerala, what we actually witness is a lot of landslides near the Western Ghats, and these regions have become the forces of landslides primarily because when you consider the land will have the trees. The trees are deep rooted. They would be able to withstand the pressure. They would be able to stop the landslides. But then what are we doing? In the name of tourism, in the name of creating new avenues for the livelihood, we are hitting the nature constantly. And one of the forces which is also driving it is the deforestation. So there have been specific plants which have been there for a very long period of time. They have been rooted, and now they are uprooted off their own places, and as a result, when there is deforestation, large areas of forest near the rivers or the catchment areas or near the cities have been uprooted, and as a result, this is causing excessive flooding in that area. Since these plants would be able to withstand, but now there is deforestation, uprooting that has taken place, and now they are not able to withstand it. So the problem being deforestation. Third is about trespassing on the water storm drains. The areas which were once essentially created by the stream water drains, now they have been trespassed by the people. Then there are unauthorized colonies, which we did discuss, that around the lakes and the ponds and the rivers, what we have is unauthorized colonies. Then there is slum development in and around it. They come and then they occupy that particular premise. The government may not have a keen look into it, either because of the vote bank politics or because they represent a particular caste, a group, or a religion. So there is unauthorized development of these colonies near the rivers, lakes, as well as the ponds. And then there is poor water and sewage management. When you look at the cities like Bengaluru or Chennai, for example, or Delhi, they were not meant to withstand this amount of people or the density of the people. It was very minimal. The city was developed, and they were not able to, they were designed only for a specific number of people. But since large number of people have been moving to these cities, the city is not able to withstand the population. Let's say, for example, we have the concrete roads, or for example, we have a city urbanization plan as well. So this plan will keep into picture the number of people who may come to that area in a specific period of time. So the city will be developed as per the expected population. But now if there is excessive population, it means that the number of roads will also get minimized as well, because you will have more settlements that is coming over, and there will be poor water and sewage management as well. And then there are people who would also throw plastic as well. Then there is clogging in the sewage as well, and ultimately the flood management system also fails in these areas. So this is the primary reason as to why there is increasing settlement, there is floods in the region, says this article. Added to it, let's go a bit extra. We have been speaking about the negative issues of flood, But what you also have to focus is there is a positive aspect that is also included with the floods. Now you might ask me a question, what is the importance of flood? What is a positive aspect of the floods? Here it is. So what happens whenever there is flood, let's say for example there is Bengaluru, or for example any of the southern Indian states, they do not have the importance, or they do not have the positiveness of the glaciers. In the northern states, what we have, the glacier melting that takes place, it provides water throughout the year. But when it comes to the southern part of India, what we have is a southwest monsoon, and to the Tamil Nadu, what we have is the northeastern monsoon that comes up. So what we have is the retreating monsoon for the state of Tamil Nadu, and for the states of, let's say, Kerala, then we have Karnataka, and then we have Maharashtra and Telangana. What we have is a southwest monsoon where we have the wind that drives, and ultimately there is rainfall. But if there is excessive flood, what happens in that particular place? There would be water recharge of the groundwater. So recharging of the groundwater takes place, and at the same time we would be able to save enough water for the future as well. And these flood waters also provide much needed water resources in the arid and the semi-arid region. Let's say for example there is rain shadow region. Let's say for example in couple of places in Western Ghats as well, there are these rain shadow regions. Many regions do not get enough water as well. So water can be moved from one region to another, and these flood waters provide much needed water resources, and this also helps in maintaining floodplain biodiversity. The biodiversity, much different species would be able to survive in these species in this particular area, and flooding can also spread nutrients to the lakes and the rivers, which can lead to increased biomass and improved fisheries for a number of years. These are some of the advantages when it comes to the floods in that region. So floods are required because they do have their own share of advantages as well. So how do we overcome this particular issue? How do we overcome these floods from reoccurring every now and then? What we require is a management. So what we require is the flood management. So whenever we have a master plan, this master plan has to have what could happen in that particular area. We would have seen some of the precedents that might have occurred in the past, so we need to have a master plan. Let's say if the flood in that area increases by so and so magnitude, this SOP will have to immediately be operated. So we will have a standard operating procedure, we will have a master plan. We would have seen from the past that if such an incident occurs, if there is over flooding that takes place, excessive rainfall that takes place, then these are the problems that may occur. So we have to be ready with the master plan. So the master plan should also take the future eventuality as well. Let's say it is able to withstand about 5 centimeters of rainfall in that area. So the master plan should be in such a way that what if it leads to 7 centimeters, something like the hypothetical numbers. So if there is an eventuality where there is excessive flooding that takes place in a region, we need to have a master plan as well as a standard operating procedure. We also need to come up with the storage projects as well. Let's say for example development of the dams. These dams should not be only reservoir of saving the water, but they should also act as a reservoir of storage of the water for excessive floods. So construction of the dams should be thought of as well. Added to it, we can also have embankments, we can also have dikes, we can also prevent these trespassing on the water drains, and these settlements that are taking place in couple of places, they have to be stopped. So what we require is the institutional setup. So whenever there are places which do not have the constant monitoring, an institutional setup should be established such that this institution keeps a constant monitoring. For example, in the Bengaluru Corporation area, what we have is the BBMP. So the BBMP should keep a constant check about these illegal activities. The illegal activities has to stop, and in case there is any settlement that comes up, an example have to be set that these people will have to be removed from such a place and will have to be given a new rehabilitation program or as per the law that is in picture. And finally, the flood forecasting activities should also take place. So when we speak about the forecasting, what are the advantages? We require what is called as the advanced technology. With the advanced technology in picture, we would be able to project what could happen in the near future. So we need much better technology, and for that whatever is required on the research front, on the development front, on the scientific front, the same amount of money on the research and development will have to be put up, and ultimately we need to have these kind of establishments. Is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says putting the 70-hour work weak idea into perspective. The article here is speaking about the recent statement made by the founder of Infosys, one of the founders of Infosys, Narayan Murthy ji. He made a statement: for us to develop as a country, what we have to put in on a weekly basis is about 70 hours of work. So he made a statement: if India has to compete with the likes of China or with any of the developed countries world over, what we need is the younger generation putting 70 hours of work. Currently, when you look at the prescribed norms, if the person is working for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, so 9 5s are, he will be putting about 45 hours of work. If it is a person who is working 6 days a week, then it will be 8 hours per day. So it is around 6 8s of 48 hours of work. So this is the standard that is being currently followed in our country. So it is about 45 hours of work if it is 5 days work. If it is 6 days work, it is about 48 hours of week. So this is a standard that is being followed in number of places in India. But what exactly is Narayan Murthy sir speaking about? He says that about 70 hours of work will have to be put in. So additional 20 odd hours will have to be put in by the youngsters and by the people, so that the country as a whole becomes more productive and we are able to reap the benefits of it in the future. So is it right? Is it the right way to go? As of now, we are working for about 48 hours, 45 hours. Should it be increased to 70 hours? So we will try and understand the pros and cons of it. So what we have to understand is that as of now, assuming that it is a 6-day work, a person will have to put in at least 11.5 hours. So which means to say every single day, a person will have to invest as much as 11.5 hours according to Narayan Murthy ji. If it is 5 days a week, it is almost equivalent to 14 hours, 13 to 14 hours of work that a person has to do. So what are the pros and cons of it? So let's say, for example, if a person is coming up and then he says that I am ready to work for the company. So what are the advantages that a person derives from it? One, whenever a person is working, let's say for about 11 hours or 12 hours, what we are doing is we are increasing the skill set. I'm just saying for the sake of examination and for the sake of debate, and in case a question or an interview question is asked for you, what will a person do? Since he is in the office, he would be able to understand the nuances of the work that he is engaging in. As he starts interacting with the people and developing connections with the people in that particular area and in that job location, he would be able to develop the skill set. So more skill set, more will be the pay. More the pay, he would be able to have a sustainable living. That is one thing. Second thing is, the author also says that apart from the skill set, it should be on the will of the person. Not everyone would be able to work for about 11 hours or 12 hours or 13 hours. So if a person is passionate enough, if he does it on a voluntary basis, he should be able to do so. In fact, there are many people who are already doing it. In case you ask us, the advocates, we almost work every day 12 hours, because morning we start our work from around 10 o'clock where we go to the coach, and it goes up till 5 o'clock in the evening, and then we also head to our offices, we also draft for the day, we also speak to our clients, and we also discuss with them. So 12 hours is usually a norm for the advocates. Similarly, it has also become a norm for the doctors as well, even for the engineers who work in couple of professions. So there is a lot of people who do sacrifice, and it has to be on the free will, it has to be on a voluntary basis. So if they are ready to make changes in their personal life, that should be left to them. So in case a person is working for a long period of time, one, he will develop the skill set. Second, what we will do is we would be able to compete with the best of the countries. This is where the author says that Narayan Murthy ji also brings a statement that where countries like Germany or for example Japan or many of the developed countries, they are putting in a lot of efforts, and as a result, since they are putting in a lot of efforts, their country is growing. So for us to also improvise over a period of time, we need to also increase, says the author. So what are the pros? One is the skill set, second is the free will to develop, and third is that we have these people who will ultimately contribute for the country, and when they contribute for the country as a whole will also develop. These are the advantages. But when you look at the disadvantages or the cons that we actually have, there are a couple of issues that actually surfaces. All of us are making a living, so we have to work, and at the same time family is most important for all of us. We will have our parents, we will have our spouses, we will have our children, we will have our siblings as well. So we would want to create memories with them, we would want to spend time with them, we would also want to engage with them. So where do I find the time? If I am engaged in 11 to 12 hours of work every single day, and I have to sleep for at least 6 to 7 days, if I have to sleep for 6 to 7 hours, all that I am left with is about 2 to 3 hours, which will again go in the basic needs of the day. For example, traveling, eating, having showers, so on and so forth. So where will I spend time with my family? So the major issue is, if it is about 8 to 9 hours of work every single day, we would get at least an hour or two where we would be able to spend time with our family. If it is only work, that is the major issue, that we would not be able to have quality time with our family. If we are not able to have quality time with our family, this may also lead to emotional stress and also physical stress as well. How physical stress? You're making your body is toiling for about 11 to 12 hours and 13 hours a day. Your body also requires rest as well. If you're not giving rest to this body over a period of time, let's say for example at 45s and 50s and 55s, the body starts weakening, and that is when no company will stand for you. That's a purpose. And then there is constant stress as well. You have to keep meeting the targets, and if you are not able to meet the targets, it will further lead to stress. And added to all this, your health will be hit, your financial health will also be hit. When your physical health is hit, you have to keep going to the hospitals, and you have to keep paying the doctors as well. So your health is also hit. Then there are psychological problems that you will have, and ultimately your financial problems will also rise as well. And finally, in case you want to grow, you want to perform, let's say you have a particular habit, let's say you have a hobby that you would want to play a sport, or you want to play a guitar, or you want to learn music, or you want to play instruments, you would not be able to do any of these things if the number of working hours are increased. So the author substantiates the same by giving us examples as well. So when we consider the examples given by the author, he takes the example of couple of states in India. For example, when it comes to the urban areas is where people work for more than comparison to the rural areas. Yes, they do work in the rural area, but the comparison, when you juxtapose both these bodies, it is more in the urban areas. And when it comes to the states, we have Uttarakhand, where people work for about 9.6 hours in the urban areas. Then we have Maharashtra, which is about 9 hours. Then Gujarat, it is about 9 hours. In Karnataka, it is about 8.7 hours. So the author says that in all these places, Uttarakhand has the highest, where they work nearly for 9.6 hours. If we have to compare between the countries on an annual basis, we have India, where people work almost for 2122 hours. Then we have Germany, which is about 2077 hours. So you have a comparison as well. So in this comparison, the author goes on to say, immediately after independence, yes, Germany and Japan might have worked excessively, but over a period of time, they have had an established process, established standard operating procedure. So with time, they hardly work for 6 to 7 hours. If India also has such an intention, they can do it, says the author. Then that apart, the author also takes into picture couple of charts. I want you to go through these charts, for example, where they spend their time on, which is about sports. Then there is other leisure activities. Then there is sleep, housework. Then there is other unpaid work as well as volunteering. So people spend these many hours on these aspects. So when it comes to work, increasing the work, number of hours that they work, it means that India will have to keenly watch it with other countries, says Narayan Murthy. But then we have to keep all these commitments as well, that is the skill development, and at the same time family time, stress, health related factors. If all of this is taken into picture, it should be left to the free will of an individual, and a standard procedure of 9 hours should be present, but the rest should be left to an individual, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, Supreme Court puts Maharashtra Speaker on deadline over defection pleas. We did discuss about this article in our yesterday's daily current affairs discussion. What is this article about? This article is about Speaker's power when it comes to the anti-defection law. We did discuss about the anti-defection law yesterday in our daily current affairs, and we did discuss that there is one of the flaw in the anti-defection law, that there is no timeline that is mentioned before which the speaker will have to decide about the disqualification of the member of the Legislative Assembly or the Lok Sabha. Let's say, for example, there is a proposal that is being made that a person of one of the political parties has switched or swapped to another political party, or that he is not listening to the party whip. So we have the party whip which should have issued the command. So there is an individual who is not listening to the party whip, and as a result this person will have to be disqualified. So a proposal has been made, it is being given to the speaker, but the speaker has to ultimately decide whether this person has to be disqualified or not. But this speaker does not work it out and he does not decide on it, takes his own sweet time, and ultimately when a proposal has been made under the anti-defection law, it has to be decided, but the speaker keeps it as a whole, and ultimately it is the legislative making that is ultimately suffering. So in order to overcome this particular issue, we have had the state, we have had the judiciary which has now said the Supreme Court has to direct the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker to decide disqualification petition filed under the 10th schedule of the Constitution against the minister by December 31, 2023. So a timeline has been fixed that you have to decide all the survey that you want to do, you can go ahead and do it. All the analysis that you want to do, you can go ahead and do it, or you can summon people in case you want to summon people. Take all the records on board, and ultimately if you are deciding on the anti-defection law, decide it before December 31, 2023. So from the preliminary examination point of view, remember it is the speaker who decides on the anti-defection law. But when it comes to generally, if let's say for example under 102 or article 191 of the Indian Constitution, if a person has to be disqualified, it is the president who decides with the recommendation of the election commission. So only in anti-defection law we have the speaker who decides it, but if it is generally the disqualification, it is the president or the governor who will decide on the disqualification based on the recommendation of the election commission. This is very, very important. So if they generally ask you that it is the speaker who is deciding on the disqualification, no, it is not. It is the president with the recommendation of the election commission who decides under 102. Under 191, it is the speaker who decides, it is the governor who decides under 191 with the recommendation of the election commission. Only with respect to the anti-defection law, we have the speaker who decides, and that has to be decided on a specific timeline, says the Supreme Court in the present instance. Now let's look into the next article. This article says AP train crash toll rises to 14. So there was a recent issue, an accident which took place in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So what exactly happened? There was one train which was passing in the front. There was another train which comes and hits and collides with the first train. So there is the first train which is going, and then the second train happens to skip the signal. So skipping the signal is not just a norm that is in the roads, but unfortunately in the present situation, because the second train skipped the signal, then the second train has collided with the first train, and this has led to 14 people passing away, and this has also resulted in casualties as well. So the minute this accident has occurred, we have Prime Minister Modi who immediately comes up and also prays for their soul, and we also have Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister who has also given gratia as well. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced 2 lakh from the PM's National Relief Fund for the next kin of each deceased and 50,000 for the injured. Union Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnav announced ex gratia of 10 lakh for families of the deceased, 2 lakh towards grievance and 50,000 for minor injuries. And Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister instructed officials to pay an ex gratia amount of 10 lakh each to the kin of the deceased and 2 lakh each to the injured, and he also announced a compensation of 2 lakh each for the kin of the deceased and 50,000 each for the injured from the other states as well. Why did this happen? One is because the second train happened to skip the signal and it collided with the first train, and added to it the covered system which is already present in most of the trains also failed. So the KAVACH is an indigenously developed automatic train protection system by the Research, Design and Standards Organization in collaboration with the Indian industry. Since KAVACH was not present in these two trains, this led to the collision. It is meant to provide protection for preventing trains to pass the signal at red, which marks the danger, and avoid collision. It activates the train's braking system automatically if the driver fails to control the train as per the speed restrictions. The system also relays SOS messages during emergency situations. Since KAVACH was not present in any of these trains, this has resulted in the accident occurring in the railway in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from the preliminary examination point of view. So a new species of mushroom has been discovered from the Western Ghats. So remember, in case they ask you a question, Candolomyces alboscomus was recently in news. What is it? Remember, it happens to be a species of mushroom. And where is it found? It is found in Western Ghats. So that happens to be an important factor. So the new species has been named Candolomyces alboscomus for the white woodly scale-like structure on its pilus or cap. Delicate inbuilt, the mushroom grows to a height of as much as 58 mm. So remember, the discovery of the species of genus in India is special, given that there are only 35 species in this particular genus worldwide. So where was it found? It was found in Western Ghats. And what is this species? This happens to be a mushroom species called as Candolomyces alboscomus, that is in news. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from your examination GS paper 2, international relations. So what we have is Chinese vessel which begins research off the coast of Sri Lanka amid India's concerns. So this Chinese research vessel happens to be Xi'an 6. So what is this vessel? This vessel currently will visit the western ports of Sri Lanka, and it will make a visit along the Sri Lankan western ports, and ultimately it will start conducting a survey activity in and around it. So this happens to be India. So this happens to be Sri Lanka. So whenever you have these Chinese vehicles that come close by, they would also be able to intercept certain signals as well, and this could become a security threat for the country. And whenever we know for the fact that the very name Indian Ocean is given by the country of India, so this happens to be along the premise and in and around India. So when Chinese come up and see what exactly is happening in and around the Indian Ocean, this could also become a security threat to India as well. And now that they are coming and making an investigation along the western parts of Sri Lanka, which is very close by to India and Kerala, this could ultimately become a problem for the security. So we have India which is opposed to it, but then we have Sri Lanka which has given permission to Chinese naval vehicles, and these Chinese naval vessels are now in the western part of Sri Lanka, and this could become a problematic issue between India and Sri Lanka because they have given permission, and by default between India and China is what we have to understand with this article. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.